The recording of this session has now begun. So the first thing we're going to be doing today is having a listen to a couple of you do a present demonstration of one of your 4 skills lesson plans. So this is the assessment form that I will fill out as you're doing your presentation. So you'll have about 10 minutes to share the screen and show us a PowerPoint or a PDF, however you've created your lesson plan. Whatever format you've used is fine. Some do a PowerPoint, some do a PDF, some do a Word document. It doesn't matter which of the items that you use. You're just able to share it with us. So across the bottom of the screen, we'll begin with you, Eleanor. Across the bottom of your screen, do you see the share button?
Yes.
Now, the item that you want to share with us, do you have it open already on your computer?
Yes, it is.
All right, so click on the share button, and then you'll have whatever items are open on your computer will show, and then you simply pick the item that you want to share with us, the lesson plan.
So can you see my screen or not yet?
Yes, are you able to make it a little bit bigger for us?
Yeah, sure.
That's better. That's good. Okay. Yes, we can see that.
Okay, so I used the same format you shared with us, Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Because I found it very organized. So as you can see here, the number of my participants or students is actually 33, and they are at the intermediate level. They are school students, and they've been taking English for 6 years, but they only take 2 hours or 2 periods, actually not even hours, because the period is 45 minutes. So 2 periods of English for the past 6 years of their lives. They are almost 15, and when it comes to their prior knowledge, they are already familiar with modal verbs and travel words, because the topic I chose is traveling. But definitely today we're gonna add to the travel words and to the modal verbs, because as I mentioned earlier, they are familiar with some and with some functions of each modal verb. Sorry, they are 10 graders, so they are in grade 10. So in Lebanon, 10 grades is grade 10. Sorry, is similar to I think first year of high school. And Arabic is their mother tongue. English actually is their second foreign language, because they take French, so they take 6 periods of French a week and only 2 periods of English. So their major focus is on the French language as a foreign language. The setting is non-native, because this is in Lebanon to me. Since I taught in Lebanon, I wanted to count on this experience, and it's an in-person class, so it's not online. I just need to mention that I already did this activity with my students, so it's not something I haven't tried before. And when it comes to the goals, by the end of the session, I want the students to talk about rules in different countries. And this is the overall goal. The enabling objectives will mainly be focusing on some travel words, some modal verbs, in order to be able to reach our overall goal, which is to be able to talk about rules in different countries in the world. And when it comes to the terminal objective, the students will be able to use certain travel terms and modal verbs to talk about rules or etiquette in different countries.
Very good.
I hope that I used.
Your
Yeah,
goals and objectives are well explained. That's good.
yeah, and I was hoping that I made them clearer this time, because when I sent my when I asked you about it by email, I think it wasn't that clear. So I'm glad to know that. When it comes to the methodologies, I'm using CLT, TPR, and ALM.
Could you scroll back up just a moment for me? Back up
Sure.
so I can see the enabling objectives. I'm just making a couple notes here. That's good. Right there is good. Thank you. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Eleanor. Please continue.
Sorry, when it comes to the methodologies and approaches, I made a little change, so it'll be only CLT and TPR. The available material are going to be pictures. The computer, I'm going to be using the computer, not the students. Books and whiteboard worksheets. That's it.
Good.
Sorry, I had to remove some stuff now because I included a listening activity, but then I felt that I was tight on time, so I removed the listening activity now before our webinar. So that's why I'm making some changes.
All right, that's fine. So please continue.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start now with the class itself. The class itself is made of 4 activities, since it is since the time allotted to me is 45 minutes, and we're gonna be starting um, with a PowerPoint, but I just need to make sure I can share the PowerPoint. 1 minute, please.
Certainly.
Sorry, I had to stop. Okay. Okay. I'll share again. So what I did here is that I prepared this PowerPoint. But I don't know why it's not.
If you click on slideshow that's underlined in your menu bar.
Yeah, I already clicked on it. And I need to
Click on
click on,
from beginning. Yes.
but it's not showing, right? Because I only have a black screen.
No, it's not showing for some reason. I don't know why it's not showing. Just go back to just show it this way. That's fine for us.
Okay, so what I did is that I prepared this PowerPoint about 5 different landmarks in the world, and I wanted to make it so a little bit. I decided to choose some landmarks which are not that obvious to some of them. So the thing is, I will be sharing the photo with them, and they will try to guess the name of the place or even the country, if not the name itself. So some of my students knew that this is Australia, but they didn't actually know what this photo represents.
Sydney Opera House.
Again, please.
It's the Sydney Opera House.
Yeah, exactly. So they were able to know that this is in Australia, but they didn't actually know what it represents. So we tried to talk about it, and I was trying to take advantage of this startup activity in order to make them speak and to have an idea about uh, their lexicon in relation to traveling words. And it's the same thing with all of the remaining photos. So I chose from different places. And I try to get them to describe the photos or even the places if they have um, any idea about it. If not, then I try to share 2 or 3 pieces of information about the place. And so this is the startup activity. After the startup activity, I prepared a very short reading activity about a travel blog. They needed to read this blog on their own. And as you can see in this text, there are some words in bold. When I did this in Lebanon, I actually used the student's textbook, but because I don't have it here with me, I tried to use one online and I put the resource. So I included the link. Uh, but in Lebanon, we used the students' textbooks, so they needed to read a travel blog about a young lady's experience, and they had some words in bold. So I wanted them to figure out the meaning of these words based on the context, because we already worked on context clues as a reading technique, and I needed to make sure that they are being able to apply it in order to figure out the meaning of unfamiliar words. Once the students read the blog and explained the unfamiliar words using their own words, we checked them together, and then I asked them to choose any of these words in bold and write it in a meaningful sentence. And I didn't get the time to share to listen to all of their sentences, so I chose only like we had, let's say, 8 words in bold, so we only had like 8 students sharing the sentences.
Are you showing us the blog now?
Yeah,
No, you're
can't you
still
see it?
showing us the pictures, the PowerPoint.
Oh, okay, maybe I should stop sharing and then share them, because I was
If you can switch to the other item, that would be fine.
I did that, but it didn't show. So can you see it now?
It's coming up. There it is. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I was saying that this is the second activity, and I included the link of the blog,
Good.
and this is the blog with the words in bold. So the students need to explain the words in bold using their own words, and then they need to write, choose one and write it in a meaningful sentence.
That
Uh,
that's very
after
good.
Yeah, after the reading activity, I moved to a short grammar activity. They don't like grammar. They always complain about it. So I always try my best to make it simple, short, and easy. And what I did is that I wrote here 7 sentences, and I tried my best to make them all related to traveling, so they can be more inspired by the topic. And I included modal verbs in each sentence. And what I needed from them is to figure out the function of each modal verb in each sentence. They are already familiar with modal verbs. It's not the first time they come across them, but sometimes they might be familiar with different functions. So, for example, they might be able to know that we use must to make some kind of deduction, like she's late, she must be stuck in traffic. But today, like, we're focusing on must in order to talk about rules and the negative form of it. So it's something we didn't work on before. So that's why I can say that the grammar activity here is to add to their prior knowledge rather than to introduce something completely new. So that's why I decided, and I usually like to use the inductive approach with them when it comes to grammar rules, to make them read sentences and then come up with the rules themselves. And definitely, I might step in whenever I feel that they are going off track or things aren't clear to them. Because I noticed that with modal verbs, my students have the tendency of adding s to the verb that comes after modal verb. So they might say, for instance, uh, if in number 3, let's say they had the bus driver said she needn't take another bus, they might say she needn't takes. So they have this tendency of adding s
Yes.
to the verb after the model verb. So I always make sure that these are it's clear to them that they need to put the verb in the base form. And I also explain like anything that could be confusing to them, such as in the last sentence, you'd better. It confuses them, like the apostrophe D to them might mean would better. So I make sure that it's clear it's had better and it doesn't change form with the pronouns. But most importantly, I focus on the function of each model verb. So how they can be using it to talk about obligation, necessity, to make formal requests, to give advice. Because as you can see, I used have to, mustn't, could, should, may, had better. So different functions.
Very good.
And then for the last activity, what I actually did is that we have a room at school where the students can be using or can be doing interactive like they can be doing activities related to language which requires space, because I have 33 students, so the classroom does not fit them all, especially when they need to move around. So we move to this room, and it doesn't include any desks or something, so the students can freely move around. And I prepared this activity, so I already prepared to them some photos. I posted them on the wall, and each photo included one rule from one country. And I included some of these photos, but not all, because they are 33 students, so I needed to make sure that there are at least 15 photos. So what I did is that I included the different rules from different countries. Sometimes it was definitely difficult for them to guess the name of the country, because sometimes they are not familiar with the flag or with the figure. So I was moving around helping them, and they needed to write one sentence about each photo, focusing on the rule that the photo represents and using one of the model verbs. So like, for example, let's say we're working on this one. So they need to say like, in Italy, you mustn't or you shouldn't wear flip-flops while you are in Italy.
Interesting. Yes.
Uh, so I chose different rules from different countries. They had a hard time guessing the flag or the uh, figure, but sometimes they created their own rules. So sometimes they weren't able to guess the exact rules, just like here Winnie the Pooh. So they weren't able to guess the point. But then later on, when we met in class again and we went through this, I explained to them the idea behind it, that in Poland, Winnie the Pooh is not allowed in educational places because he's not wearing pants. So you shouldn't show Winnie the Pooh in educational places.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are other photos with other rules. Um, they went nuts about this one because they found out that in Greece they are not allowed to play video games. So sometimes it's good to see how their own perspective of things as teenagers.
Wow.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah. So um, this is all I prepared, and as you can see, I tried my best to put some kind of estimation for time. So for each activity, I estimated the time. So for the first one, startup, I gave it 8 minutes. For the second one, the reading with the vocabulary, 12 minutes, because it was a short reading and simple one. For the grammar one, 10 minutes. As I mentioned earlier, I try to make it as short as possible, because we talked at the beginning of the year, and this is what they expressed and requested of me. They wanted me not to give them grammar at all, but we all know that this is not possible. So I always try to take their
Yes.
requests into consideration. And for the last one, I gave it 15 minutes. Uh, but they needed more time. So what I did is that I made them finish this in class, like to write the rules. And next time we met, we checked what they wrote. So I didn't have the time to check what they wrote down. So I kept it till the next session, the following session. And when it comes to the assessment, so for me, the diagnostic assessment was done through activity one, the startup activity. And this is something I always do. So I always count on the startup activity to give me a general idea about my students' background knowledge. For the formative, I counted on activity three because they had to, sorry, not activity three, activity two, because they had to write their own sentences using the words we covered. So this was formative for me. And the summative is the last activity where they had to write the rules. When it comes to the extra class assignment, I didn't give them any for this activity.
Okay, it would be very good for you to come up with an extra class assignment that does relate to the lesson.
Hmm.
You should definitely include an extra class assignment of some kind.
Okay.
So that was very good, Eleanor. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
oh no, actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. What I did is that maybe because I didn't have the textbook, I remember now what I actually did back in Lebanon is that I assigned some exercises in the textbook where they had to read another paragraph about traveling and fill in the missing modal verbs. This is what we did in their textbook. Yeah, now I remembered,
Okay. Well,
but I didn't include it.
you could create an extra class assignment that is similar to that they can just they can go to the internet and look up a place that they would like to travel to, and they could write a brief description of what they would expect to find there.
Okay.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Something that connects to the lesson. Very nicely done. Excellent use of the PowerPoint and the pictures. The pictures were very good. That activity four was a very good activity. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Vita and Z, do you have any comments or questions for Eleanor about her presentation?
I like this lesson. I like all these activities, rather interesting. And I have just maybe one question about home task.
About what?
About home task, about homework for students for the next lesson.
The homework?
Yeah, about homework. So should they revise all the material? I mean, active vocabulary or grammar for the next lesson?
I'm sorry. Is the question for me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see. What I usually do, is that whenever I start the following session with my students, I always start it with either start up if you are starting a new activity, a new lesson, sorry, or with a warm up activity. So the warm up activity is always about what we covered in the previous one. So what I do is that I might, for example, sometimes, let's say, give them some sentences and they have to fill in with one of the words we learned in the previous activity. Or sometimes I might give them the explanation and I expect of them to give me the word which we covered together. So it depends, but yeah, they have to review that for the next session. And as I said, I always expect of them to come to class prepared to be asked questions about whatever we learned before, especially vocabulary, because if they don't practice them, they lose them.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's rather interesting, very interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Z, do you have comments, please?
Oh yes, I also genuinely enjoyed the lesson, and I think it exposes, because you mentioned that the students are in Lebanon, and I
Yeah.
think what you provided, the information about various countries and various cultures, allows them to explore or even gain interest about learning more about different countries, or potentially even wanting to visit those countries themselves. And I think that was very good, and it was very exciting. I could probably feel the excitement from the students. And I think that was very good. Even the reading activity as well, I found that very interesting because it uses a lot of casual vocabulary that otherwise you wouldn't really encounter in textbooks. I think that was really good. And as Vita said, that probably like reviewing some of the vocabulary would be useful so that the students would remember it late on. But otherwise, I think it's a very exciting lesson plan, and I would love to see it in person.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
But Ms. Van Miller, I need to say one thing, especially about activity 4. I just need to make it clear that it's not my own idea. So I took this idea from a workshop I attended. So just to give credit where due. So I learned that from a workshop I attended.
That's fine. And whenever you're borrowing an idea like that, I mean, any ideas that are presented at workshop, they kind of become open territory. They become open ideas for people to take away and use. So that's fine. In that sense, you don't need to give a credit in your lesson plan about where you got the idea from. It's only when you're copying text from, like for the blog, you included the link to the blog.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that was fine. But for an overall general idea, so that activity 4, it's a style of an idea that anybody could come up with on their own.
Okay, I see.
And the fact that you heard about it or you saw a demonstration at a workshop, that's just fine.
Okay.
Because we all use ideas that we've had triggered from some other source. But, you know, every time I have an idea that I might have had triggered from another source, I don't say, oh, this is where I got the idea from. Right. So that's fine. But thank you for sharing that point with us. That's good. Thank you very much, Eleanor. Nicely done.
Sure. Thank you.
So Vita, are you prepared now to go ahead?
Yeah.
All right. So have you, whatever document you're going to share, have it open on your computer, and then go ahead and share it for us. That's good. Could you make it a little bit larger for us, please?
Yes, okay.
Perfect. Thank you. That's good. Yes. Yep. That's fine. That's good. Thank you.
So the topic of my lesson is deforestation and the climate. Age of students approximately 18-20. Number of students 8, 6, 55 minutes. This lesson plan is for online teaching, online lesson. Students have access to internet with computer, tablet, or phone. Some of students and the others are professional ecologists, and they're interested in environmental problems. Their mother tongue is Turkish, and Turkish cultural background. Intermediate, or it can be for intermediate level. They have, let's see, two classes a week. So every week, two classes, primarily in school curriculum. Zoom platform, non-native environment. The lesson aims at helping learners develop their communicative skills in the context of environmental problems. And objectives. Using vocabulary of environmental problems, using second conditional, debate and argument building. Students will have to debate And terminal objectives. Students will be able to understand the effects of deforestation on the environment. Students will be able to express opinions and give reasons on climate problems in real life situations. Students will be able to predict different consequences about environmental problems. About approaches, TLT, TPR, and ALM. Materials, pictures, computers or phones, Wi-Fi, YouTube links, whiteboard for teacher, paper and pencils. And first of all, teacher asks students about the importance of trees to the environment. Students share their ideas. It takes about approximately 3 minutes. Teacher shares vocabulary words and pictures on the screen to students. Then my task, teacher's task, is to elicit the meaning of the vocabulary words from students, and students match them with pictures. Then maybe some students will have some difficulties with pronunciation. Then teacher asks students to pronounce the words and makes corrections if necessary. It will take about 5 minutes. Then teacher shows a video to students. Can I share? About
Yes,
2 minutes.
Yes, if you can get the YouTube video to work, you can share it, certainly. We just watch a little bit of it. We don't need to watch the entire thing. Are you able to click on the link and go to the YouTube?
I will have to copy. Oh yeah, I have this video. Can you see it?
No.
No?
I think you have to stop sharing screen
Yeah.
and then open the screen again with the video on it. Now share screen again and go to the video screen. Yes, now we can see it. Can you turn up the volume for us, Vita?
And like this? Can
Well,
you hear?
we still can't hear it, but we get the idea of what the video is about just from seeing that little bit of it. So that's good. That's good. We can go back to your lesson plan now. That's fine. That gives us enough of an idea about the video itself. That's good. It's a good link.
So after watching this video, teacher presents vocabulary list on the screen. So a list of new words for students. And some pictures, and students' task is to match new words and pictures.
Okay, good.
To guess and to match. Like this.
Good.
Repeated one life. So then teacher presents the article on the screen. Students read the article silently to share information. It takes about 5 minutes. The article Climate and Deforestation from National Geographic site. And then students will discuss the following questions. For example, the first one, how much of the planet is covered with forests? And there are 6 questions. This text, it will be presented on the screen. Link.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah, and after teacher shows the words and definitions on the screen, and the students match them. Match the words with the definitions and the following words: greenhouse, deforestation, ecosystem, global warming, and so on. And students' task is to match. Then grammar aspect, the second conditional. Teacher shows the examples on the screen. Then teacher asks questions about them. Teacher shows the difference that students pointed out using colors to highlight the structures. And then some grammar tasks. Second conditional, structure, examples, highlighted with different colors. And then grammar task. For example, the first one, deforestation wouldn't continue, gap for students, at the alarming rate if everyone, gap for student, do their part, and so on. And students' task is to use grammar point to fill in the gaps. Second conditional. It will take about approximately 10 minutes. Then speaking task. Teacher divides students in pairs and gives some instructions. Teacher reminds students to use vocabulary words. 2 or 3 students per team debate using the structure for equal opportunity to speak. Format for interactive debate. And the following structure. Just some tips for students. And the remaining students are judges. Their task is to observe and then to discuss. They listen to the entire debate and then at the end they vote. And then they can change places. Students do the activity about 15 minutes. Teacher stops the activity and gives feedback about 3 minutes. And students can use the following: negative and affirmative team, for and against. Highlights of arguments. Wood is the greenest resource in the world and we should use more of it. So for and against. Students can support this idea or use some negative ideas. And evaluation. Students are asked one by one to make sentences using target vocabulary and grammar. Teacher monitors completion of the following activities: grammar structures and vocabulary. And teacher shows pictures of target vocabulary and students try to guess the meaning of the words. It will take about 5 minutes. The following pictures and students will have to guess. Use vocabulary and some grammar. And their homework. Students have to make a project about deforestation in Turkey. And they can send their projects on email. Less than 55 minutes.
Very good. Thank you, Vita. Eleanor and Z, do you have any comments or questions for Vita?
Yeah, actually, I also loved how the variant the activities are. So I love that they actually include different learning styles. So like she included an audio, she included the pictures. So I really loved that, and I loved how you reinforced, Vita, the new concepts by first showing the photos and then providing the explanation, and they had to, so I really loved that. I bet it's extremely helpful for the students. My only concern is that for me, I wasn't sure whether the time is enough, especially that you included a debate. With my students, at least, especially at this age, when there is a debate, like I never dream of only giving them 15 minutes for a debate, because at this age, I feel they've got a lot to share and they are very self-opinionated. So I'm just afraid that the debate won't be given its like enough
Time,
time.
yeah.
Yeah, enough time for
Yep.
the students to be really enjoying it, because to them that's the icing on the cake, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Maybe I had doubts about time for debating, and maybe it's better to add some more minutes, yeah?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's a very good point, Eleanor. And yes, I agree. Adding some more minutes, Vita. So the debate could actually be a second class, the next class.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Although for the purposes of this assignment, I would leave it as it is inside this lesson plan for the purposes of this assignment. Because if you pull that debate out and make it a lesson by itself, then it really does not become a 4 skills lesson plan all by itself. Unless you can think of a way of turning it into an entire 4 skills lesson plan to be a second follow-up lesson. But I would just leave it inside here and maybe make a little note that extra time might be needed in the next class to complete the debate, something like that.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
The reality of many of these lesson plans is that they will not fit into 45-minute time frame.
Yeah.
That's a reality, as we know from experience teaching. You can prepare a lesson, and very often it won't fit the time frame, and you need to carry over some of it to the next day, and that's fine. But for the purposes of this assignment exercise, I would just leave it as it is, Vita. I wouldn't start messing around with it, because it'll take away from this lesson plan, which is quite complete and very thorough. Nicely done.
Okay, thank you.
Z, did you have any thoughts?
I also really enjoyed the lesson, and I think it's a very relevant topic that you chose that involves all the different, like even the speaking or the listening and the reading and the writing, that sort of cement the, I guess, the content and the type of grammar that you want to get across to the students. And I guess maybe I missed it, but you said the second conditional, the students had already learned that, and in this lesson it's mostly to use it as part of the lesson, because then for debate as well, if it's a new topic, then it might be a bit difficult to incorporate. But otherwise, I think it's a very informative and relevant topic to talk about with your students.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Z. Thank you very much, Vita. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eleanor and Vita, both. Good presentations.
Thank you.
So I know I let each of you go a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but that's
Yeah.
fine. I wanted to see what it was that you had, and you got into a role there. I didn't want to stop you midway through, so that was very good.
Thank you.
And Vita, when you tried to play the YouTube video link for us and we couldn't hear it, that's quite often a problem when you share a YouTube video through a webinar. But in an in-class situation or online, you could email the link to the students ahead of time and they could watch it themselves. Excuse me. So you don't always, you're not always successful having the sound of a video share through a webinar like this. That's often the case, but that's nothing that you can control. That's just what happens with systems. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So Z will look forward to hearing you on Thursday. Good, thank you. Now I want to take a couple of moments and just talk about the Mooc project. So I was doing some thinking about this, and I was trying to come up with a couple of tips that I could give you about working on the Mooc project. So what I decided to share with you is back a few years ago when I was teaching at a university here in Toronto, I would prepare these PowerPoints for the students, and then I would do a voice recording on each slide. That little star at the side there indicates there's a recorded message on each of the slides. So I prepared my PowerPoints ahead of time, and then I uploaded them. The university I was working with used Moodle as a platform where we could upload videos onto the Moodle platform and students could access them there. Now, I've never used Moodle privately. Personally, I've only ever used it through that university that I was connected with. Many educational institutions use Moodle because Moodle has the ability to upload a large file such as a PowerPoint, which is often too big to email. And most of my PowerPoints, especially with the recordings added, the file becomes too big to upload to Google Shared Drive. So we used the Moodle platform to store the PowerPoints on for the students. And those PowerPoints are all still on the Moodle platform at that university. So even other years since then can go back and look at these PowerPoints. So they're available for the people to see up there. But with Moodle, I believe you're able to create an account, and you could possibly try Moodle for uploading your Mooc project. So what my suggestion is for you is to create a PowerPoint before you go to any of the Mooc sites. Create your PowerPoint, and you're asked to create 2 modules. So each module might have 2 or 3 short PowerPoints in it. So a PowerPoint presentation might have 4 or 5 slides, and you might have 2 or 3 of those PowerPoint presentations in one module. So you could have the description of the module on the first slide, an introduction. You could have a bit of the contents of what it is that you're doing with the PowerPoint. So this is my introduction slide on my PowerPoint. The next slide is the contents of what is going to be occurring that day in the class or in this module. And then I get into the actual material itself. So my thought is that if you create a PowerPoint, and this particular PowerPoint only has 7 slides. So this was part 1. Part 2 is a different PowerPoint, and it has a dozen or so slides in it. But those 2 PowerPoints together created my module for this day, this particular day of the course. So if you create your PowerPoints, then go to a Mooc site and sign in. So whether you go to Coursera or Thinkific or Moodle, the difficulty with these course sites is that the free trial is 7 days or 14 days. There's a time limit on the free trial period. And after that, they want to start charging you a monthly fee. Well, we don't intend for you to have to pay a monthly fee to create this project. So if you create your PowerPoints first and get them all ready, then sign into one of the Mooc sites for a free trial and open up your course and upload your PowerPoints, you should be able to do that within the free trial period, if that makes sense.
Mr. Miller, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it possible for us, if we are already teaching online, to record ourselves, like our class, and then to provide, to include it as a part of our MOOC project?
Absolutely. If you are if you're able to record that and save the recording and include that as well, that's not a problem at all. The only thing you need to do is you need to get permission from everybody in the class. So just like when I start the recording of our sessions each day, I open the recording button and I say, we are now recording this session, so that everybody knows it's being recorded.
Okay, so I need to get permission from the students and from the institution I work for, right?
Yes, you should.
Okay, and that should be enough if I recorded 2 classes?
Well, you would need to include some activities. So whether that's PDFs of assignments that you would have the students be doing, or activities you would have them do, but you need to include some activities as well as the recording.
Okay.
So module 1, for instance, might be recording of a day of a class, but you might also include 1 or 2 PDFs of an assignment, some activity that you're having the class do during the recording.
So I need to include the plan by itself, like whatever I'm gonna include in the class itself. I make sure that it is included in a PDF file and I send it. That's the point.
You would include that inside the module on the Mooc platform. So the idea of this is, after you've created your online modules, 1 or 2 modules, and those are up on the platform, now they're available for anybody to see, right?
Oh, I see. Okay, I got the point. Okay.
So each module, if you're including a recording, the recording simply shows what would happen in the class, but the module needs to include the PDFs of activities that occurred during the class, so that anybody who's going to your module would be able to see the recording of the class, and then they would be able to download the PDF and do the activity.
So like either ways, we need the MOOC platform in order to be able to upload the class.
Yes.
Okay, now I got it. Okay.
And that's where I'm saying, get all your material ready before you go to a Mooc platform and begin the free trial. Because as soon as you begin a free trial, most of the platforms require you to put your credit card information in, but they don't begin to charge you until after the free trial.
Okay, I see.
So when I was attempting to do those free trials that I showed you previously a few days ago, I had to put my credit card information in. Well, shortly after I did the class where I showed you those sites, I went in and I canceled my subscription, because I did not want to be paying a monthly fee. Some of them are $100 a month, some of them are $200 a month. And I didn't want to be paying that when I'm not actually creating online courses to sell. So that my tip is to prepare your material, then sign in for the free trial and upload your material during the free trial, and do it that way, so you don't have to pay for subscription fees.
But once the free trial is over, would the material still be available?
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. That's a very good question. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
But how does TESOL check whether we did it or not? That's my point. Like if we chose the free trial thing and we worked on it, then how does TESOL know that we worked on this?
That's a very good question. When you've got it in place and you've got it uploaded, all you can do is save the link to your modules, to your short little course. All you can do is save the link and send the link. My guess is if they try to open the link, if the material is still not on the Mooc platform, there will be a message comes up that says this material has been removed by the platform. But
Okay.
at least they would know that it had occurred, and you will also have what you prepared, so you'll still have your material. If they want to see your material, you can always send your material to them.
Okay. I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes complete sense. Thank you.
Okay, and your question is a very valid question, Eleanor, and I honestly don't know the answer to it. It makes sense that after your free trial, if you don't pay the monthly fee, it makes sense that the platform you've used would not present your material out there for people to access. That does make sense. It's a bit of a tricky assignment because of these difficulties, these pitfalls along the way, and it's a bit of a tricky assignment. So do your best with it. Just save all of your information for these modules. Put them in one folder on your computer, because then if you are asked to send the material to TESOL, you can send the folder through WeTransfer.
Okay.
And WeTransfer is able to send. So as I described before, you upload the entire little folder that you create for your Mooc project. You upload that to the WeTransfer site. The WeTransfer site creates a link for it, and that link is sent to TESOL. You put in the email address that you want it sent to on the WeTransfer site, and it is sent to TESOL, and they have 7 days to open the link and download it and watch it.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the best I can suggest, because I was still working away, playing around on different sites, trying to come up with a process that would allow you to create a course or a couple of modules of a course on a site and do it for free. And I couldn't find anything other than what I showed you on the previous day that wanted credit card information.
Okay.
So I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes about that. And if you are doing a PowerPoint and you do want to add the recording on the PowerPoint, as I've got on this PowerPoint, you can type all your information in and get all your slides prepared. And then you can go back and you can do the recording on each slide. You can record yourself saying something on each slide to address the issue, the details of each slide. Okay? And I showed you that process of doing the sample recording before. Did you want me to go over that again? Did you want me to review how you add recording onto a PowerPoint?
Actually, I tried to follow your instructions, but for some reason it didn't work out. So.
Okay, well, let's add a new slide here. So we've got a blank slide in here now, slide number 2. To record something on it, click on record and click on current slide, which is this slide number 2. Now, as soon as I do this, you will not be able to see the next screen, but the next screen opens up and it begins to do there's a red button at the top I press to do the recording. As soon as I press that, there's a countdown of 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Now this slide is accepting this recording that I'm giving right now. So I went to the record button, I clicked on it, and then I chose record from the current slide to give the to give this information and choose this slide. Then I click on the round red button at the top. When that opens up, it automatically opens up to an expanded screen, but you're not able to see this screen right now. Then there's a square red button to stop the recording. So I've stopped the recording on that slide. Now I end my slideshow, but you notice there's no little star here. There's no little star to indicate I have a recording there. That's because I need to go to the top and save my PowerPoint. I need to save it. Then I need to close it. And then I need to, let me find my PowerPoints. Then I need to open it up again. And as soon as I open up my sample with the recording this time, that little star is there. So you need to, after you do your recording, you need to go to the little purple disc at the top, the save button, and save it. Close your presentation and then open it up again to get the recording. So now I'll be able to play from the beginning, and you'll be able, when you open a new PowerPoint presentation, you can hear the menu bar across the top to the recording tab and select that recording tab. Then inside that menu that opens up, you will see a spot that says recording from current slide on the left-hand side. Now this slide is accepting this recording that I'm giving right now. So I went to the record button, I clicked on it, and then I chose record from the current slide to give this information and choose this slide. Then I click on the round red button at the top. When that opens up, it automatically opens up to an expanded screen, but you're not able to see this screen right now. Were you able to hear that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that help a little bit with some of the details?
Yeah, I've just found out that it could be called dictate. The option could be called dictate. That's why I couldn't find it the first time.
Oh, on your PowerPoint.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So you have a different PowerPoint version than I have.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be. All right. So if that's helpful, then that's good. That's fine. Now, this is a very short little PowerPoint that's got the 3 slides, so it's probably not a very big file. If you want me to email you this little sample PowerPoint where I'm talking about the instructions in each of these slides, if you want me to email this, just send me an email and I'll send you this email back. I'll send you this PowerPoint back.
Sure.
All right. Because I want to do my best to get this to work for everybody. I went through this yesterday with the group, and they found the ideas quite helpful. So I wanted to give you ladies the same information today. So again, there's my email address. I think you've each emailed me something anyway, so I have you in my email, and that's fine. So any questions about the Mooc project or the PowerPoints, the emails, or the PowerPoint thing, the recording? Any questions about those items?
Yeah, I have many questions. Mr. Miller, can you explain, please, about the second presentation of this project? What can be included? Some information about a platform, for example, about, I don't know, about Zoom, yeah? About its specific or whatever. What can be included?
So are you talking about, in the essay, Vita?
Yeah.
So in the essay itself, the actual Mooc essay, what you are asked to do is to, let me just show you my Mooc essay. Now, remember, when I was doing the course earlier, year and a half ago, I only had to do the Mooc essay. I did not have to do the project. But in my Mooc essay, I set it up with a general introductory statement. I talked about methods and technologies that were used on Mooc platforms. I talked about the connectivist approach and alternatively XMOOCs. So connectivist are CMOOCs, XMOOCs are extended resources such as TEDx or edX that are usually part of a university course. They're added on as extra work, and graphic novels are becoming more important. They're also vocational MOOCs, which are how-to videos. So if somebody is training to be a plumber or an electrician, there are vocational MOOCs, how-to MOOCs that give resources to help teach them in that particular field. I then talked about different MOOCs that I investigated, Udemy and Coursera specifically. I talked about MOOCs that I have been involved with as a student. I also talked about how I've been involved with MOOCs as a teacher. So I referred to Zoom and Moodle and Google Drive platforms, talked about those experiences. And then you're asked to do a review of some MOOC platforms, 3 or 4 MOOC platforms. So I talked about Udacity, edX, Class2Go, and Coursera, giving a little bit of a history about those. And I referred to an article by a gentleman by the name of Paul Stacey. I'll put the link to his article in the chat box in a moment after I stop sharing screen. But he had this is the article. He has a very good overview description of different MOOCs. And then I talked about the fact that I agree with what he said, and I explained why. And then I mentioned this Voki site, and I've shown you my avatar that I created before. So I don't need to show you that again. But I talked about Voki and the use of this avatar platform within educational institutions. So and then I put some steps on how to create an online course. So this is the theory of how to create an online course. And as we all know, understanding the theory of how to do it and actually doing it in a practical reality can be two different things. And then I talked about the summary table that I included as my second appendix here, where I did this chart comparing advantages and disadvantages with online learning and in-class learning. So all these different items down the left-hand side, all the different headings or topics that I had some thoughts about, and I put the points in their respective boxes here. And I went through that chart, and I did the chart. I used that format because to write all of this out in paragraph form would have added many pages to my essay. And it was already long enough. So I didn't want to go too far over the word limit of the essay. So I thought, oh, a chart will work. So I used a chart. So whether you create a chart or not is up to you, however you want to do it. And then after my comments on my chart, I had a conclusion statement, a brief paragraph, and then of course the full bibliography. So that's how I set my paper up. Does that help, Vida?
Yeah, thank you.
So the link to Paul Stacey's article, I'm just going to copy it here and put it in the chat box for you. So I would suggest that you have a look at that article. It's just a very good article about MOOCs and gives you kind of a jumping off point to begin your conversation about the history of different platforms. Okay? Any other questions, ladies, about the Mooc essay or the Mooc project?
So we mainly have 4 assignments to work on. The first essay, and then the conversation activities, the 4 lesson plans, 4 skills lesson plan, and the Mooc one.
The Mooc essay and the Mooc project, those are 2 separate things. And
Oh, okay.
then the research paper, the final research paper.
Okay, so 6 all in all. Okay.
No, 5. The foundation essay,
Okay.
conversation activities, 4 skills, the Mooc essay, the Mooc project. Oh, you're right, 6. Yeah, I was adding up wrong. Sorry, you're right down there, 6.
Okay. Including the midterm, and then we have the midterm and the final. That's all.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Vita, did you receive the link for the WhatsApp group? Did you receive it by text? Again, I sent it again a few minutes ago.
No, unfortunately. Mm-mm.
I think I have your text number correct. I have +380 660 395 9066. Is that correct?
I hope so. Maybe 10 is just a second. Yeah, +380 66 39.
Oh, I have a
59.
zero. I have a 0 after the 2 6s.
No.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
That's
maybe.
so it's +380 66. And can you give me the rest of your number, please?
39 59 0 66.
+380 66 395 9066.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm going to try this one more time. I just sent the link after I changed your phone number in my phone. So sorry I had the wrong phone number for you. So let me know if you get that text with the link, because then you'd be able to join the group.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions about the assignments, ladies?
Sorry, Daniel. Was it for the Mooc project? If I'm a foundation student, do I also need to make the project and the essay at the same time, or is it just?
No, foundation does only the essay.
But everyone else, advanced and forward, needs to do the both.
Yes, that's my understanding. But I have not seen anywhere that the foundation students did the Mooc project. Only the Mooc essay. Okay.
Mr. Miller, what about students ETSOL MOOC program?
The TESOL students definitely do both.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on today. We're going to do a little bit of Going back to the modules on the Canvas platform, today we're going to cover teaching business English. So teaching business English on our modules, you see down at the bottom of the modules list, we see teaching business English. So a brief look at this, excuse me, brief look at this part of the Canvas platform tells us that business writing is the third part of the academic writing course. In this part, you focus on reading and writing in different academic and business disciplines. The course materials will be offered via readings, videos, various types of homework assignments. There are suggested optional textbooks. Now, throughout the Canvas platform, there are many optional textbooks and links that are provided for you. It's a tremendous wealth of information, but you should not try to read everything because there just is not time. So you can have what I did was I went and I had a quick look at many of the items, but I just had a quick look at them. What I like to do is look at the table of contents in a book. I just kind of browse through the table of contents, and if something pops out that looks of interest to me, I go to that chapter, but I certainly don't read the entire document because it would take years to read all the resources that are provided on this course platform. Teaching business English, writing and other disciplines. An academic discipline is also called a field or area of study. In higher education, most students will choose a discipline to pursue in their studies. These disciplines arise out of centuries of history and ways of education. But in fact, there is no formal way of defining what a discipline is or is not. Some disciplines are commonly known and are found in nearly every university. For example, most colleges or universities will allow the pursuit of the study of mathematics, biology, economics, or history. There are many dozens of disciplines. Within a discipline are also sub-disciplines. For example, within a history, a student might focus only on Russian history, or within biology, on plant biology. Different disciplines or groups of disciplines have specific expectations about writing within their field. These differences extend to ways of using research to the acceptable syntax of a sentence. The sciences, for example, often favor passive sentences rather than active ones, in order to keep the focus on the written material, on processes or substances, not on the person performing the work. This goes on to describe identifying different types of text, looking at these three examples below. I'm not going to read them, but it says here, even if you don't understand what these samples of writing say, you can start to notice some differences. Example 1, for instance, relies heavily on quotations, while example 3, you see that sentences are made up of multisyllabic words, nouns, and some form of the verb be. Each of these samples, and in fact each discipline, also has specialized vocabulary. Sample 2 shows some specialized vocabulary in writing about literature, literary devices, themes, and poem. So without reading the entire text of these three examples, we can see how specialized example 3 is. Desensitization, which is the converse of secondary sensitization, is distinguished from habituation, the converse of primary sensitization, by the explicit expression of memory rebound and recovery effects in the post-stimulation response. In the rat, desensitization of the vagally induced Herring-Brewer reflex is abolished by lesioning the pneumataxic center or systemic administration of the non-competitive NMDA receptor antagonist MK-801. Now, I read that and I read the word, but I have no idea what this writing sample said because it's too specialized in that particular area of study, field of study. So when you're dealing with students and you're looking at specific areas or specific disciplines or fields of study, you need to be very aware of the specialized vocabulary items within the material you're using and within that discipline. Is there a dominant type of sentence structure, such as the passive voice? For example, the experiment was done, not we did the experiment. How are quotations or other research used? Is first person, I, me, or we used, or is the writing impersonal? What else do you notice that makes it seem like it belongs to a particular discipline? So there's a fair bit of material here about teaching business English. And when we talk about teaching business English, we're not just talking about teaching business. Teaching business English refers to the business of any professional discipline. So the business could be finance or economics, the business could be law, the business could be medically related, pharmacy, for instance, or medical research. So when they say business, don't be confused by the thinking that business is just economic stuff.
Isn't that in this case English for specific purposes?
Yes. Yes, it is. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. I didn't mean to stop sharing the screen there. I meant to actually go to the slideshow. So teaching business English is teaching for specific purposes. So I took the information in these few slides. This is not a long PowerPoint, just a few slides. I took this from writings in the British Council Teaching English blog, writings by Gabrielle Jones, who tells us how to succeed in the business English classroom. Find out what students really want to achieve. You'll be teaching busy adults who are used to working towards objectives. You should therefore discuss with them at the beginning of the course what they would realistically like to achieve. Skills such as these items. Get a clear idea about the context in which learners use English. A very important part of the needs analysis process should be a discussion about the context in which the course participants need to perform. Why are they learning English? Who do they communicate with in their work and under what conditions? Someone who is learning English just to brush up fluency skills will have different needs and expectations to someone who is learning English to supervise a team working in another country. Be businesslike, but keep energy levels high. To make the right impression, it's important to teach in a businesslike way. This affects what you say and how you behave, but also what you wear. If you're going to work in company inside an actual building, then punctuality, professionalism, and competence are crucial. I would say those items are crucial whether it's in the building, in the company, or whether it's online. I think they all apply anyway. Furthermore, business English learners, like all learners, need motivating. A group of managers, for instance, who have just come back from a long business trip, will need their trainer to keep their energy levels high, and as with all classes, there needs to be a certain degree of entertainment. Choose your materials wisely. As in the general English classroom, learners will expect you to bring materials to class. There are lots of books and online resources available, but it's important to choose materials that create authentic situations in the classroom. Probably the most important resource is the learners themselves. They can provide you with real materials from their working lives, the things they need to read and understand, or perhaps even create and present. So that's where you have authentic material. It could be instruction manuals for equipment. It could be any material related to manuals related to the work they actually do. Anything at all that is authentic, real material. And the students can help to provide that. These could be leaflets, emails, PowerPoint presentations, or reports. Number 5, be flexible and try to anticipate problems. Business people can have high expectations. They might ask for classes before they start work, during lunchtime, or at the end of the working day. This means trainers can end up working long days, perhaps starting the class at 7:30 in the morning and finishing the last lesson in the evening. In addition, learners may cancel at the last minute because of unforeseen problems. Perhaps an important call has come in or their train is delayed. Although this can be frustrating, business English teachers and trainers need to accept that for learners in the workplace, work is clearly their priority. To reduce the stress, it can be a good idea to negotiate a cancellation policy with the company in advance. Ask them to make sure they inform you 24 or 48 hours in advance, for example. A further issue may be the numbers of people attending class. It's not unusual to prepare for a group of 6 to 8 people and have only one person show up. Try and create activities that will work on a one-to-one basis. Business, yes,
Can I?
go
Yeah,
ahead, Eleanor. Yes, go ahead.
concerning the cancellation policy, because I taught business English for a short period in my life, and I came to an agreement with the student, especially that these are like adult people. I do understand they are like work oriented, but still, like, this is also my work. So we came to an agreement that if they cancel 4 hours before the class, they pay for the session. And
It's good.
I really think that um, talking about high expectations, sometimes this could be frustrating to us as teachers, because they need you to be understanding, but at the same time, like, they are skipping the session because of work commitment, but at the same time, this is your work. So it's a little bit ironic.
I totally agree with you. Yes, that's exactly right. And it does become a complex issue to negotiate. Yes. And
And
it takes work on both sides.
yeah, it does. I think that as long as we dot the I's and cross the T's at the very beginning, I think it's great, because they are business oriented. So, like, it's a kind of contract between the two of you.
That's right. Yes.
But
Yes.
sometimes it's tricky when the group are not actually in the same department, because like, you're still working with the same company, but then, like, they're not in the same department, so their needs are also different, which makes your work as a teacher even more challenging.
Of course. Yes, that's exactly right. Those are very good points. Yes. And it is challenging. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions, ladies, about this set of few slides? The bottom line as teacher is that everything boils down to good preparation and a professional approach. So that was one PowerPoint that I wanted to share with you. And then very briefly, we just have a few minutes before we end our class. Very briefly, I wanted to share a couple of other PowerPoints with you. Now, these are specifically connected to finance and economics, so they are related to what we think about as business. But these are PowerPoints that I've used in classes that I've taught with before. This one being on travel, trade, and finance. So let me ask you a question. Why do we travel? As human beings, why do we travel? For what reasons?
It depends. Like it could be to explore or to learn or for business or so it depends.
That's
Pleasure.
yeah, that's exactly right. There are multiple reasons that we travel. That's exactly right. Right. Why do we trade? Why do countries trade with each other?
Yes, because usually a country is not self-sufficient. It doesn't always have what it needs, and so sometimes it's good to get different materials or different resources from different nations.
That's exactly right. And every country is lacking something that it wants to get from another country, so it trades with some of its own products or goods. It trades with other countries, but we can also use money to buy other products, and that's what finance is. So finance equals money down in the bottom corner here. Finance equals money equals trading for value. So in the picture of these two boats, there are different products in each of these boats, and they are trading back and forth with each other because whatever these items are, some type of plant or vegetable, I would guess from the appearance of it, that person wants to trade for some of the handbags that are in this boat. So they trade to get what they need or want. They trade what they have already. So it has become a very complex process throughout the world. This is a map of the earliest securely dated sites showing human presence in the Americas, North America and South America, 16 to 13 Ka. A kiloannum is 1,000 years. So this is 16,000 to 13,000 years ago for North America and 15,000 to 11,000 years ago for South America. So we can see at these sites that are indicated by the dots, we can see the number of years, the length of time ago that inhabitants' human presence was first discovered to have been there.
And we still believe that Christopher Columbus found the Americas, right?
Well, exactly. It depends on which textbook you learned from when you were growing up.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Because, you know, how would these human beings, how would they have come to the North American, South American continent? How would they have gotten there? Well, one pathway could be from what is now the very northeastern part of the Soviet Union, of Russia, across the Bering Strait here, up into what we know as Alaska. They could have come across from the north. The ancient Mongolian and Russian civilizations come across and then work their way down through the continents. That's one way. Another is migration from three major cultural areas of the Pacific Ocean: Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. And from these three areas, there was a migration across to South America. So from Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia, all these series of islands that make up each of these areas, these geographical areas, they came across the Pacific Ocean to South America. Genetic studies suggest that Polynesian migration across the Pacific Ocean to South America was about 800 years ago. So 800 years ago puts it at about 1200 CE, Common Era. Well, 1200 is a few hundred years before Christopher Columbus in 1492. So, you know, but the Western civilizations, the European civilizations, they believe they found the whole world, right? but there was an awful lot of traveling going on before that. Any idea who this gentleman is? This gentleman of business?
Is he Mongolian or?
No.
Mm.
Marco Polo.
Oh, okay.
Venetian merchant who traveled through Asia along the Silk Road between 1271 to 1295 CE. So he was traveling along the Silk Road across Asia to China, to the Far East. He was traveling along there for quite a number of years before Christopher Columbus in 1492, long time before, a couple hundred years before. And that Silk Road travel route existed. It's known to have been in existence in 114 BCE. So that's over 2,000 years ago. So traveling across the Asian continent on the Silk Road had been going on for a couple thousand years before Christopher Columbus in 1492 sailed across the Atlantic and discovered the New World. Business and trade flourished for thousands of years on the BCE, or on that Silk Route. For 307 years after Marco Polo's travels, the Silk Road was still in use. And then in 1602, the first chartered corporation on the globe was founded in, this leads us to the next PowerPoint. What country do you think the first chartered corporation in the world was founded in? It's a European nation. It's a European nation that has had several names throughout time.
Italy?
No. Move towards the Atlantic Ocean.
Portugal? No?
Move north a little bit.
North. A little bit?
Country
Spain?
No,
No.
keep going north. It's a country that today, the name of the country begins with the letter N for never, and N, the letter N.
Norway?
No, that's too far north.
Too far north. Netherlands?
Yes, that's it. Exactly.
Netherlands?
In the Netherlands, in 1602, the first chartered corporation was created in the country of Netherlands. And I referred to it as a country that's had name changes over the years, because we have also called it Holland. And we refer to the people from the Netherlands as Dutch. So it has several names connected with it. So that leads us into this PowerPoint, still on the topic of finance and accounting. So in this one, these are the agenda items that we'll be looking at in this PowerPoint. And we might not look at the entire PowerPoint, but we'll go through a bit of it. So the Dutch East India Company. This is the company that was founded, the first chartered corporation on the globe, founded in 1602. So it was founded by a government-directed amalgamation of several rival Dutch trading companies. So the company, the Dutch government at the time, went to many of the merchants in the Netherlands and said, enough of this fighting, we want you to work together And they said, we want you to have a corporation, a conglomeration of an amalgamation of your businesses so that you're functioning as one business, which officially was known as the United East India Company. And when you function as that one business, and the currency in Holland was guilders, not dollars, it was guilders. So they said, you know, if this merchant puts in 100 guilders towards this new company, they will be given one share of the new company. And another merchant might put in 200 guilders and they would be given 2 shares. That meant that when the profits were figured out after a trip to the Far East and all the goods were brought back, depending on how many shares the merchants each owned, that would determine what percentage of the profit they would get. It's the very same system that we use today in the stock market. So a company is created, the company issues shares, the shares are sold to the general public, and depending on how many shares you own, you benefit from the profits of the company accordingly on a prorated basis. So that company was established on the 20th of March, 1602. Basically, it still exists today, but it's certainly gone through much change and many name changes over the centuries in the past 418 years, 420 years. That corporation was like Amazon is today in both scope of products and shipping globally as they understood it at the time. So today with Amazon, you can order almost anything that is made or available on the face of the earth. Likewise, back in the day, back in the early mid 1600s, this company was the United East India Company, was the global distributor of all kinds of products. They would take products from Europe and they would sail them around the south end of Africa, and they would go up through the Indian Ocean to the Far East. They would trade the European products and bring back silks and spices and all kinds of products that come from the Far East and the Middle East that Europe didn't have. So they're trading the goods just like Amazon trades today. And then we go to look at some current modern day stock markets. So in Toronto is Canada's largest stock exchange, the Standard & Poor TSX Toronto Stock Composite Index. We look at the New York Stock Exchange in the US, which is called the Dow Jones Industrial Average. In London, UK is the FTSE, the Financial Times Stock Exchange. Oftentimes there's a number after the name of the exchange that indicates how many companies are on that stock market index. So here there are 100, the Dow Jones, the Dow average, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the Dow 30 looks at the top, the largest 30 publicly traded blue chip companies. And in London, the S&P, the 500 market index, is looking at the top 500 companies in the United States. Sorry, the S&P, the Toronto market, is tracking the performance of Canada's listed largest stock market exchange, looking at Canada's largest companies. It is comprised of Canada's largest, most prominent companies. It used to be the TSX 300 in Canada, but more recently it's the TSX 298 because Bell Canada was split into a couple of different companies, and they were moved from this index and went to a different index. So all of these different stock markets around the world, in Frankfurt, Germany, is the DAX. In Hang Seng, the Hong Kong stock market is the Hang Seng index, and this is blue chip stocks traded on that exchange. It's composed of 4 subsectors: industry, finance, utilities, and real estate. Then there's the Shanghai stock market, stock exchange in Shanghai, China, the largest stock exchange in mainland China. It's a nonprofit organization run by the China Securities Regulatory Commission. So that's a little bit different because in China it's owned and run by the government, whereas these other stock exchanges are publicly owned corporations. And then in Japan, Tokyo, Japan is the Nikkei index. So my point of showing you this PowerPoint is that when I was teaching this topic in a finance class a number of years ago at a college, I had multiple pages of lists of new vocabulary that are very specific to the topic. And they had exercises and activities related to the stock market topic, because at the beginning of the course, we would identify 5 stocks on the Canadian stock market, and the students had to look up the stock prices every day and chart them on a graph and keep track of the up and down volatility of the market price, the market value of the certain stocks for each of those companies. So there were numerous activities connected to it. We also studied what are bond ratings. There are 2 companies, Standard & Poor's and Fitch and Moody's. Those 2 companies rank governments and corporations based on the ability of that entity to pay back debt. So if they look at a country, for instance, and they say this country is in good financial shape and they're able to do a good job of repaying any debt or paying interest on loans they have, then they get a AAA rating. Same with a company, with a corporation. In June of 2020, shortly after the beginning of the pandemic, Fitch reduced Canada's AAA rating to AA+. That was a significant drop for Canada, but it was all connected to the fact that the huge deficit that the government was building up because of the pandemic, and the government was paying out billions of dollars to support Canadians and to support companies that had to be closed down because of restrictions. So this article just talks about that and the impact of oil, Alberta's production due to the coronavirus pandemic was a key factor in Canada's financial situation. In Alberta, the oil in Alberta, there is some drilling, but a lot of the oil in Alberta is in what is called the tar sands. So a lot of the oil is on the surface in a very sandy type of soil, and it's a much more difficult process to extract the oil from the sand than it is to actually drill a deep hole and pump the oil up. In many ways, it's easier to drill the hole and pump it up because you just get the pure crude oil that you can then work with. With the tar sands, you have to remove the sand from the tar, or remove the tar from the sand, get rid of the sand, and then process the tar. So it's a more costly process. And because of that, it was not cost effective for the Alberta oil production to continue after the pandemic started, because once the pandemic started and lockdowns went into place, restrictions were global, there was very little use for fuel, very little need for fuel. People were not driving anywhere. Airplanes were grounded, so there was no fuel production. So the demand for fuel products dropped significantly. When the demand drops, they had an excess of supply, and that meant that any production of oil in Alberta all of a sudden became extremely expensive, so they closed the oil fields. That had a big impact on Canada's financial situation. Because in Canada, we say, as Alberta goes, so goes the country. Because of the power of the oil industry in Alberta. So then we got into different asset classes. One is equity, which is stock market. Equity means ownership in stocks. Bonds, fixed income, bonds and marketable securities. These exist if a company or a government wants to raise money for research and development, they will issue a bond. They issue a bond. I can buy a bond. I say, I want to buy that bond for $1,000. I give my $1,000 to the company or the government. I get to hold the bond. And while the government has my $1,000 to use for whatever project they want, they pay me interest on my bond. So that's called fixed income because it pays interest to the holder of the bond. And then, of course, the last asset class is cash. So on the face of the earth, there are really only three types of assets: stocks, bonds, and cash. So we went through all that information, and then we got into some accounting discussion of gross domestic product, what that is. Gross domestic product, you might hear that reference related to countries. Gross domestic product is the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. As a broad measure of overall domestic production, it functions as a comprehensive scoreboard of a given country's economic health. So we got into that, and then we get into what balance sheets are, a little bit of personal financial planning, and because that's one of my designations, it's one of the things I've been doing for the last 27 years. My certified financial planner and chartered life underwriter designations, registered retirement consultant, and certified professional consultant on aging. So these are all financial planning designations that I've got, and that's been my main business for the last 28 years until the pandemic hit. And then that all had to stop because I was not able to meet with clients. I haven't met with any clients for the past 2 years. So it's all been by telephone and Skype and Zoom meetings that I actually have meetings with my clients. So that's a little bit. I just wanted to share those couple of PowerPoints on a specific topic. And yes, Eleanor, you're correct. This is English for a specific purpose. When you talk about business English, the purpose could be any professional field. And it is also, as well as being called business English, it is also English for a specific purpose. Yes.
So then would the teacher need to be knowledgeable in those specific subjects? For example, like if it's biomedical science or something very specific, how would you, because obviously I haven't studied that. In your case, you've studied finance and you know the very specifics.
Exactly. And yes, as the teacher, as the teacher, you would need to do some homework to become familiar with some of the terminology, at least basic terminology. So I don't have a medical study background or a science or pharmaceutical background, but if I was teaching pharmacy people from another country, if I was teaching them English language about the pharmaceutical industry, it would be easy enough for me to do research on words connected to the pharmaceutical industry and provide vocabulary lists and create activities for discussion and role play. That would be easy enough for any of us to do on any specific topic that we might need to work with. Because keep in mind, you're probably not going to be doing an extremely advanced class with people from another country in the medical field, for instance. So you're not likely going to be working with doctors or neurosurgeons who are very experienced in their field, who have a vast knowledge of the English language in their field, because they already know it. So you might be working with doctors or specialists in the medical field, but they're probably going to be at a beginner or an intermediate level, and your role will be to help them learn more English connected to their specific field, right?
I think it's most challenging when you start the discussion part or the role play part, because in this case they need some information in order to use the terms you taught them, and then when they start discussing the information with using the terms, it becomes tricky for us as teachers. At least this is what I noticed. So many times I used to feel that I'm not being able to keep up with the discussion itself because I'm not as knowledgeable as they are.
And that's fair enough, and that's where you there's no problem with the teacher saying, I don't have a medical background or whatever the profession is. That's not my background, so I'm not going to be able to understand some of the terminology. I can give you the word and I can explain what the definition is to you, but I don't really know how to apply that in your field of study. They will know, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you are not expected to be a PhD level in every field or area of study. That's just not expected of anybody, right? Nobody can know everything. But one of the biggest tricks to teaching is knowing where to go to find useful material. So for instance, I just typed into my search bar, vocabulary for medical students. So here we go. Here's a list of vocabulary right here. So there are about 75 there are about 75 items here. So, here on this website, I've got enough material connected to medical studies with all kinds of additional lists and all kinds of additional material. So finding material on any given topic is at our fingertips on the internet these days. So it's not something you need to be concerned about. The trick is knowing where to go to find it. And where I go to find just about any answer is Google search.
So is business English the same as corporate English? Corporate English?
It can be, yes. Yes, it definitely can be. Again, there are often different titles that describe the actual thing that we're doing, right? As you've noticed along the way.
Yeah, because the other day I was applying for a teaching position here in Canada, and they said that one of the courses they offer is corporate English. So I was just wondering if they mean business English or.
They probably do mean the type of vocabulary that you were seeing in those two PowerPoints I presented. Yes, exactly.
But it's like finance and like economics. It's not business English in general as for specific purposes.
Correct. So the corporate English would be for finance, economics, accounting, and business. As we think of business, the mathematics of business, I would guess that that's what they're talking about. Yeah. All right, ladies, do any of you have any questions or something you would like to discuss before we close out the webinar for today? No questions about anything? We're good to go? All right, I'm going to stop the recording now.